Hello everyone and welcome back to Replay Works and welcome to a very special replay review. And today we're going to be covering the BS Fest, Bandai's card game fest in Texas that I was there. It was Curse Trip first off, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the stats that I've quote unquote gathered from what the community's been showing and show off some lists that are pretty interesting at the event. Alright, but before I preface this, I just want to say that I am jumping on the bandwagon about talking my experience about this event. I'm not actually doing any deck analysis, guys. I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to talk about all the flaws that I witnessed firsthand, about some of the stuff that I had to do to try to get ahead, to try to get to the merch line, and still didn't work. And I want to introduce my thesis statement for this video, which is, if you did the right thing at Bandai Fest, oh, you got fucked! And I really hope that didn't discount me from the algorithm because that was before a minute. But that is my thesis statement, because there are a lot of people that did the right thing, that followed the rules, and then they got fucked. And you see that in the post, you see that in the absolute criticism that everyone is willing to throw at Bandai, which Bandai deserves, and also Play TCG as the organizers of the event. And it's one of those things where it sucks, because yeah, everyone was there to try to get some good merch and try to have a good time, myself included. I mean, I played in the regional, but originally I did get into the regional. I got into regional after they opened up the slots, but you know, even the regional experience was fine, but then on day 2 I was bored out of my mind because everything was gone, right? But that being said, let's kick things off. We're just gonna go ahead and check out some of the BS stats that I prepared. So according to what general population is about people who attended the event, we got 55% general attendees, 40% competitors, and the 5% scalpers. Now, I put scalpers in air quotes because, you know, it's one of those things where people do try to resell and buy it, but you know, these are the people that are hardcore. When you sit down at a table and they have 6 of something that no one else has, yeah, to me that's a scalper, not just the one guy who has the one and he's like, hey, you know, I want to sell it for 60. To me, it's just like, you know, if he bought one, it's fine, and just try to get rid of it because he was able to get into the merch line, fine. But if you sit down at a table and you have 6 of something and you're selling it for the quote unquote market price, yeah, I'll say it, that's a scalper. You know, that's hands down a scalper. So that being said, we have the next stat, which is the number of people who got the merch. So if you wanted to put it lightly, this is obviously over exaggeration, but I still feel the sentiment is true, where most of the general attendees, they didn't get anything. You see a lot of the posts of people talking about how they were lining up, they didn't get into the lottery, or they got into the lottery but they got in it too late and they went to the merch booth, bam, didn't get anything. Probably the few people that were able to luckily get into that slot, you know, kudos to them. They really struck out, because I believe that most of the product, the people that got the merch, are the scalpers. And from walking around at the tables, of having, you know, seeing people put stuff on the table that they have for sale, yeah, I believe it, because, you know, I literally sat down in front of a guy and he pulled out 6 of some One Piece thing, and I was like, huh, interesting. And then, you know, the competitors like me, you know, we got into the merch line, we were able to get some of the leftovers from what everyone else was able to get, but you know, clearly it wasn't enough. It wasn't a lot. So just want to show that out there, that, you know, as someone who witnessed it firsthand and got to see the madness, the stories are all true. There were people there that really did have way too much more than they really should have, and a lot of people that didn't, right? All right, so now here comes the fun part. I've worked on this really hard already. So I have prepared some diagrams of the convention center, and what I want to talk about is some of the oversights of how the event was run in terms of lines. We've seen a lot of posts about the lines that were at the event and how people were lining up since midnight, and then the stampede happened. Yeah, and I want to show some of the, like, where everything was located at the convention center, and more importantly, the exploits, right? So to preface this, yes, I'm gonna say this. Day 1, I just lined up where they told me to line up. It was alright because I was a competitor. Day 2, it was kind of like the Hunger Games and people lining up in terms of, I'll show you that on the day 2 floor plan. But from here, we're gonna have, this is the floor plan level 1. This is the entrance. So there's a lower entrance to the lobby. That is the quote-unquote proper entrance, because that is where the check-in is for general admission. If you didn't have a badge, you go there, you line up in that place, and you go get the badge, right? So I call it the proper entrance because that's where people who showed up in the later half of the day, when they just got the general admission badge, showed up, lined up, great. So with that being said, this is what actually happened. And I'm going to tell you this as someone who was in on that little arrow right on the right side. Those entrances lead to the parking lot. And what happened was that after day one, someone mentioned on Discord somewhere that, hey, they didn't have to wait in line. They just got into the parking lot entrance, because they parked their car. And as you can see from the diagram, the parking lot leads to the convention hall. All right. And there's two entrances, right? The one in the middle, that one is essentially where you park the car, you can just walk right in. Essentially what Bandai staff had to do was essentially block off that entrance or stand there and just tell people not to stand there. Obviously people didn't listen to that. And then the other one is as I called it, my Metal Gear Solid experience, where that other entrance is essentially a side entrance from, let's say you park the car on a different level, the elevators go down to that level, and you can enter from there. So right at the tip of the arrow, those two little rooms, those are bathrooms. So what had happened was that on day 2, my buddy and I, we were like, you know what? The guy who did the exploit, let's just do that, right? So we go there, we find like 10 other people doing the exploit also to line up in that side area. And obviously the Bandai staff aren't stupid. They walk over and say, guys, you can't be here. You guys got to move. Obviously, none of us listen because, the day 2 we're already burned out, and I'll explain why we were burned out in the next slides. But what happened was that when the Bandai staff came and tried to shoo everybody away, 10 of us went just waited in the men's bathroom for the coast to be clear, because they were quote unquote going to open the doors at 7:30. So got some sneaking experience there from MGS. I'm glad I didn't have to use a cardboard box of that. Yes, I'm willing to admit it. I don't really see that there's any point in withholding that information. I'm trying to be as transparent as possible of the fact that, again, if you'd follow the rules, you got fucked. So at this point, I said, screw it. If no one else is going to play by the rules, I'm not going to play by the rules either. I'm not going to do illegal stuff, like trespass or break anything. But, if I see a group of like 10, 15 people lining up in this area that you're not supposed to be in, but no one's actually leaving and no one's actually getting in trouble or the cops called, well, it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to just gravitate towards them, because, I'm trying to get as much advantage as I can to try to get the stuff that I want. Again, still didn't get the stuff I wanted, so, whatever. So that's how the entrance works, and I'll actually talk about some fixes that I have that could be useful, just to not just tell my story or just be super negative about the event, even though there's a lot to be about it. I want to kind of talk about how I could see things being improved on if they choose to, again, use Play TCG, and again, if they try to use the same convention center, on how to fix these patches to make it not like, the people who just park the car, they can just stand there until it's time to go in, right? And it's something that I just want to bring up there, where I'm trying to offer some advice to a company that's not going to watch my videos, but at least you guys are listening, right? All right, moving along. So this is the real meat and potatoes. This is the floor plan for for level 2 on both days, right? So this is the overall plan. We were in exhibit hall A and B in the diagram. We were also supposed to line up in halls, the A and B lobby, right? That's where most of that's where all of the waitlist events we're supposed to sign up for. That's where, for example, day 1, I lined up there to get my Gundam regional badge, because I didn't get to Texas until midnight the night before. And more importantly, it's also where the entrances are for where people were, get their bag scanned to go in. But for all intents and purposes, this is, as you can see, Plaza A is where people lined up here at midnight. And unfortunately, they lined up there for nothing. Not to make fun of them, but if I was asked, hey man, you want to line up at midnight? I heard people line up at midnight. I would have said, no, I'm not going to line up for nothing, because at that point, this is probably day 2 Andrew speaking, because I was already burned out, because the QR code got sold the night before on Friday night going into Saturday, so it really didn't matter if you lined up at midnight. You absolutely got nothing, because by the time anyone even got in, 7 minutes in, and they found and the general populace got the QR code, it didn't matter. Like, none of us were able to get into it, even though quote unquote not that many people were in, because it's only 7 minutes after opening. That's because, again, I'm sure other posts and other YouTubers have talked about it, but that's where some of the judges, or things two or whatever, they got the QR code early, they sold to a private Discord, it leaked from the private Discord, then other people got it if you're in that circle. So yeah, I mean, if I was Bandai, I'd be aware, and I would have tested it the day of and noticed that, why is all the slots filled out in the morning? You know, we're not even open yet, right? But again, clearly no one did the double check, which says a lot about you know, the management style of Play TCG, I guess, since they handled the booth. I mean, I got my receipt from Play TCG from when I bought stuff at the booth, so I'm gonna assume that they should have been in charge of the QR code. But yeah, like, being able to double check it or generate it the day of, not the night before, because again, the staff were inside way before anyone else was here, or before anyone else was lining up, and they could have generated the day of and not even like had this issue, because it would have not been around for 12 hours, right? And that is something that I really got like sussed about. And also, for fun fact, the bottom one that says actual graveyard, yeah, that was actually a graveyard, not pictured in Plaza A, but that's what it leads into. So yeah, people were just hanging out there at midnight in the graveyard. And I did a double take as soon as I got up the stairs and looked at, like, well, we're actually gonna line up in the graveyard. Yes, we lined up in the graveyard. That is also what happened too. So I have some weird mixed thoughts about that one, but that's it's just more me and my superstitions, right? So that is the general floor plan for both days. Like, people still lined up the second day, even though day one was a complete bust. Day two maybe would have been better. Maybe. I'm gonna tell you why it wasn't. Alright, but before that, let's talk about day one still, right? So this was the inside of the zoom in angle, right? So we got Hall A, Hall B, A and B lobby, right? So the reason why I'm going to call it the waitlist gacha is because I knew people that were signed up for events. I know one guy who signed up for the Dragon Ball Super Fusion World event, an event that barely had 200 people signed up for the actual regional, and there was like 20 people on that waitlist, myself included, and he didn't get in. So that's why I'm going to call it a gacha, because you really had to like roll and pray for the RNG gods to let you into the event. And the interesting part was that, of course, you know, people who sign up for the events, there are people who get the merch bag because it comes with a lot of good promos and leave. Full transparency, I was one of them for Dragon Ball Super. I'm sorry, but you know, I wanted to get another one of those goodie bags because I had to make the most of this trip. Because again, if you play by the rules, you got fucked. So, you know, I gotta get every advantage I can in. So, that's kind of where all the waitlist stuff happened. I'm sure there was like the One Piece in the all along the side, but you know, that's whatever. So I want to also draw attention to the men's bathroom issue. This one's just a personal gripe. This one's just pure spite, because there was only one men's bathroom until 11 a.m. and it's located in that little circle. So normally at conventions, you see how men's bathrooms normally have a line because everyone's trying to use the urinal, not the stall. These were people lined up all the way into like the players area, where people just had a bunch of tables set up because they had to wait the bathroom to use the bathroom. The reason why is because the other men's bathrooms were blocked off. The main one, the secondary one that could have been used, was in the side events area, and that didn't open up till 11. There was literally a row of Bandai judges blocking the entrance to the side area, which means that they're blocking the other bathroom. And the third men's bathroom was blocked off behind the streaming area, so I guess it's just, you know, just a matter of, like, did they really have to do that and block off all three? You know, it's one of those things where they were just like, yeah, it's whatever. The guys can just go wait in that one bathroom line. But I'm like, no, come on. We need, like, there was 2 women's bathrooms that were available. Why couldn't there have been 2 men's bathrooms, right? So that's a personal gripe. Put that on the table. That one, I don't think anyone else might have complained about in a group, on a post, but I'm going to complain about it. And then we have the quote-unquote totally fair merch store, and I already talked about that, QR code and all that stuff. The fun story that I have, air quotes fun, is that at 12 o'clock they announced that they had the QR code for the second wave of merch, and everyone swarmed there, and there's a whole video about that that people put up in the Facebook groups, which is accurate. There was like a sea of, let's say, 400 or 500 people, and the downside about having 400 or 500 people try to access a website at the same time to try to book a time slot is that it crashes. The bandwidth of whatever service they were using could not handle that many people trying to force their way into a time slot, and proceeded to essentially lag indefinitely for 20 minutes. So no one could really get in unless you were persistent and kept doing it. And also at this point, they geo-locked it, meaning that you had to be within 125 feet of the booth in order for the QR code to work on your phone. Otherwise, it'll just tell you to get closer. So if you're someone like me and want to go back to the competitors area and wait, you can't do that because you got to stay by the merch booth. But you stay by the merch booth, you're also there in the horde of 200, 300 people that are still trying to get in. So needless to say, after that second wave, was a complete shit show. The weird part was that I was still able to get into like a 6:30 time slot, and I just walked into the booth and I was like, what do you guys got left? And they had packs and they had assembly kits. So I can't knock the assembly kit. Those are cool. They didn't have ST01, but they had the other 3. So I got myself a wing from MSRP, which is, something to make up for the whole day. And then going down to the lobbies, right? So what we have here on the right is the useless competitor entry line. The reason why I said it's useless is because, yeah, you get in first, but like the merch booth was already sniped out by the people who bought the QR code, so it didn't really matter that you stood in line. And like it was a long ass line because it was every single game lining up to get into the convention hall. So you're in there. I was there for like an hour just to get in, and then and again 7 minutes in, I already got news that like, oh, it's already booked up. So there's no point in actually being in that line aside from I had to get in so I can go to sit in the competitors area for the tournament. All right. Now there's also the general entry swarm, and there was some people and Naruto running as we see at conventions. And what happened with this one was that both lines were lined up outside, the general entry and the competitors line, and the doors open for the competitors line first because we have tournaments to go to. And then there were people that ran from the general entry line and bum rush the competitors line and forced their way in to that line, and they got in like 10 minutes earlier than the general entry line because the general entry line just opened up like a couple minutes later. Maybe it's like 10 minutes, like 15. But the point is, people ran through a cemetery to the other line to then wait in line for then the chance to get nothing. Now, if they went to the waitlist gotcha zone, that's fine. That makes sense. They want to secure that spot. But I'm gonna break people's hearts here. There's actually no point in trying to rush that because but when the doors open at 7:30, there was still like another hour and a half to wait for the waitlist gotcha to determine who gets into the tournament. So you don't really get points for signing up first because they kind of just took as many people as they wanted to on that waitlist and then just decided how many people were going to get in later. So again, poor line management. What I'm going to offer is that signage could have been useful because people were willing to wait in line at certain points if they were told where to wait in line. The reason why we had so many like weird ass lines inside there is because no one knew where to go. And everyone just kept making unofficial lines, which caused more chaos, right? And there was plenty of staff because, let's face it, anyone who was working the merch booth didn't actually need to be working the merch booth because aside from the QR code being scanned, no one's in the convention hall, and B, no one can buy anything until the 9 o'clock slot anyway, so there's no point in having that fully, have all those people inside the convention hall. or the sea of judges blocking the secondary bathroom. That was a personal gripe. Like, there could have been enough Bandai staff to go outside and actually rein in the chaos of this thing, or like direct people where to go, or try to be more helpful than hiding behind the door, poking their head out and being like, oh yeah, go up the stairs and just wait in that line. By the way, that there's a bigger line that's unofficial line. We don't know why those people lined up, right? So the fact that I did not see a single Bandai staff walk around outside and try to actually talk to people or get them to, I don't know, stop stepping in the graveyard. That's one thing that could be improved on. And the PlayStation people, they don't have to like actually interact. They can just be there to say, this is the line for blah 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 game waitlist, stuff like that, so people actually know where to go. Or signage. There was the whole banner and everything for all the different games, but people want to be sure. People want to like actually see the words, this wait here for waitlist or whatever. Like reassure them a little bit, because we already have a ton of unofficial lines. No one wants to wait unofficial line and get nothing. Oh, wait a second. No, that was the entire day. All right. So next we got day 2. Oh man, day 2 was even worse. So we still have waitlist gacha, but it's for UA and it's for DBS, right? Fusion World. So whatever. The smaller allocated tournaments, not Gundam, not Digimon. So what we had is the utter madness that was day 2. 7 minutes in, there was already an issue where the security line was bum rushed by people who thought they knew the game plan from the other day, right? So they come in to say, yeah, I'm gonna go get to that entrance and line up and get a spot in a really good spot so I can actually get into the call, because they wouldn't mess up twice in a row for the game for that. No, it's still kind of messed up because there was miscommunication between the Bandai staff and the staff of the convention hall. What I mean by this is that yes, they let the first wave in at 7:30, and then they realized, wait a second, no, this is too many people. We only were supposed to let the top 32 people go in. So the people who qualified for day 2, the competitors for Gundam, for Digimon, I think for One Piece, like those people are the only people that should have been prioritized to get inside the hall, because yeah, they had day 2 to play out. They were there for that. Unfortunately, that didn't help, because then you had like, I don't know, 400 people just hanging out in those lobby areas, and then you had to have like several of the convention staff and the Bandai staff form a zone defense around the entrance area and repeatedly yell out only for top 32. Right. So this is one of those things where, again, prior to the 7:30 bum rush, we did see Bandai staff inside the building, but none of them were asking if anyone was for top 32 competitors, nothing like that. Right now, to me, what could have been done is if they utilized TCG Plus, they could have done that in the sense where they could have pushed a notification to the top 32, because they had the list, they had confirmation in the app itself. They had to show the app that they were in the top 32. Just push that to the people who were in top 32 to say, hey, please arrive to the convention hall early. Please show this message and your Bandai TCG Plus app to a judge or a staff member so that you may be checked in first. They could have communicated that, because there were like, you had no real idea if you were doing that. And of course, anyone who was in top 32 who somehow watches my stuff, let me know and correct me if that it was what happened. But it was a notification sent, because I didn't make top 32. But let me know if that was happened, because that, again, that's a good idea. That's how you get the top 32 people to know that they got to be there first. And they also had to have let the staff know that 7:30 was not the actual opening time. It was only for the top 32. That was something that was miscommunicated, and then it went down the chain where we had 400 people just sticking around the building, and then if you left, you couldn't re-enter. So you kind of just had to stay around the building, because no one wanted to leave, because why would we leave? Because again, if you follow the rules, you got fucked, right? If they told you to leave the building and you left the building, you don't get back in until way later. So again, follow the rules, you get fucked. That's what happened here. People who didn't follow the rules stayed inside, myself included, because why would we leave when we have to like wait for the waitlist gacha? Because they didn't let people in until I think it was like 10 or 9:30. Because I know that 9:30 they only letting in competitors, because what happened was there were people who were going for the One Piece 3v3. And they were stuck outside because they weren't letting anyone in. And then, as I was talking to staff by the door, some of the competitors showed their phone with their round 1 pairings to the staff saying, "Hey, look, the tournament started. Why are we still out here?" And then one of the Bandai staff had to like make the announcement that, yeah, let anyone with a competitor's badge in, since they're playing a tournament, right? But again, those people probably showed up to round 1 late. They probably started late and all that stuff, right? You might be wondering why there's a thing called blend in with the One Piece players. Well, that one's another story of how I had to take advantage of any small thing that I could, otherwise I get fucked. So what happened was, this is after the zone defense thing that I mentioned. So after I signed up for DBS and got the goodie bag, actually, no, this is before I got the goodie bag. This is just I signed up for the waitlist, and now I had like another hour and a half to kill. So me and my buddy, we noticed that, hey, there's a bunch of people downstairs by the escalator. We're saying, okay, this is interesting, because they're definitely not going to let anyone on this upper floor in anytime soon, because they're repeatedly yelling at people, not yelling, scolding, I guess, people to not wait there and to go back outside. Of course, people aren't moving. You know, why would they? If you, again, play by the rules, get fucked. So we look it down, we say, okay, there's an interesting amount of people lined up by that escalator down there. Let's go wait with them, because what else are we gonna do? Wait with other people up there? So we wait with them. Turns out those were One Piece players for that 3v3 tournament that I mentioned. Okay, so what had happened was that we lined up, and the Bandai staff there is saying, okay, well, if you have a sticker for this event, because I guess it's like to mark that you were in the event, wait in this line. And if you don't have a sticker, wait in this other line. We'll give you a sticker right now. You have to follow me, right? So we stayed in the line with a sticker. So I didn't have a One Piece. I didn't play One Piece. I'll admit that. I just blended in, and what happened was that, okay, everyone got sticker. Okay, they're gonna move. The line's gonna move up. And they're gonna line outside in the AB lobby. You're gonna form a big line to enter. So that makes sense. The One Piece players. It was a big event, like thousands of people, or 1,000, I guess, because it was a team tournament. Those always have big numbers. They line up, and they would get priority to go inside the event hall. Okay, makes sense, Yeah, what doesn't make sense is why people like me and my other friend who didn't even have a competitor's badge were able to like line up with them when. And this is the part that, again, for future reference, this is the exploit that had happened. Bandai staff didn't check the badges of people who were going up the escalator when they said to go up the escalator and line up. They checked at the top of the escalator, which meant that all you had to do was just blend in with the rush of like 20 other people on the escalator, and then you just had to go in, right? Now, this again. And so here's the thing. When we lined up, we still had to wait like another hour before getting into the hall anyway. So why not do the due diligence? Why not just at the start of the escalator, before people got on it, say, let me see your badge. Okay, you got the sticker, go up the escalator. Double check these things, because at that point there was one down escalator and one escalator shut down, and the only escalator going up, there's only one escalator going up. So a Bandai staff, or two, could have easily have just body blocked it, where if it's they just see the badge, see the sticker, okay, go right ahead, and do it in a way that it's gonna take a little bit more time. But again, we're just gonna be standing there for another like half hour to 45 minutes anyway, so just take the extra 5 seconds to check people. Otherwise people like me and my buddy just walk right in, line up with the One Piece players, get inside the hall, and yes, that is how I got my ticket for the merch booth. 12 o'clock slot. 12 o'clock stock didn't really matter because again they sold out of everything in like half an hour, or at least the Gundam stuff. So there's really nothing else for me to buy except for like another assemble kit, and then I make my buddy buy an assemble kit so I can have another. So I can have one of the each that were available that day. But that is again another exploit that happened that we took advantage of because the Bandai and or Play TCG's negligence of how to like actually manage the crowd or like communicating with the players or even their own staff on what to do, because again the rules were out the window at that point. Like everyone knew that this whole weekend was all fucked from sideways. So you know, do I feel bad? I didn't really get anything, so not really. But you know, had I gotten it, obviously I would have kept it for myself. So you know, it's one of those things like everyone who I can say that showed up wanted to try to get something for themselves. The general people, most of the competitors, they just want it for themselves. Yeah, it's the scalpers that wanted to get multiple to resell at 7 times market, like retail price, right? So yeah, that's for day 2. And you know what I'm gonna offer right now is you know, more story time, but with a twist, because I'm actually gonna talk on camera for the first time on this channel. Don't mind me, I haven't used my webcam in so many years since the other Digimon channel, but I wanted to point the preference that this event was absolutely mismanaged, no sugarcoating it. The only good thing was that the Gundam event was run really smooth. Like, I'm excited to go to Canada for the regionals, because if the Gundam regionals run as smooth as it was in general, then I'm actually in for a good time, because that means the tournament's going to be over, like 9 rounds of Swiss, over in 6 hours, 5.5, right? And no repairs. As soon as the round ended, as soon as overtime procedures were finished, within like 30 seconds to a minute, next round was up. So I was like, oh, I'm good. I can just keep playing, go through the entire event, right? Personal record, I did go 5-4 with the 1-year war deck. One was due to brick. One loss was due to bricking. 2 losses were due to playing like a moron. Last loss was just he got you know, the 06 base out of shield twice, and I was like, I can't do anything about that. But aside from that, people were excited to play, which is I think the best part about any given tournament, that if people are there and they're excited to play, that's a good sign, because you know, that means you as someone in the community feel good about meeting people and interacting with them, not like, oh, we gotta cutthroat each other to get ahead so we can get the prizing so we can make the money. No, it didn't feel like that in day 1. Which leads me to my story about day 1, about how the collusion thing, man, that was fun. So round 9, there was supposed to be a potential round 10 because there was 3 undefeated, right? So the way most of the Bandai tournaments run is that we play Swiss until there's 1 undefeated. So since there was 3, there was a pair down. Now, naturally, if this was at any other locals, you know, that person probably could just throw or whatever, or you know, they don't, because they're gonna go into seed into day 2. From my personal standpoint, I don't really see any incentive to drag this out to a 10th round. It makes just more sense to end it there this way, because you're gonna get in because you were undefeated, so you have your X1 record. Your opponent's also gonna get in because they're gonna be an X1 record who beat an undefeated, right? So their tiebreakers are good. Like I mean, I guess you can argue that you might be able to get first seed if you win that round and the next round. I don't think it matters too much. This isn't that type of game where it's super strategic about your placement up there, because we don't have a side deck. That's the real reason. But what had happened was that after the round was over, 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, and people are just herding around the judge table, right? And we're like, okay, so I guess this really isn't a 10th round. What happened? Like, I guess the guy lost, right? Or whatever. And you start hearing rumors about collusion here, collusion there. Oh, this is what I was told by other people at the event. Oh, the guy who's undefeated offered to sell the win to the guy who got paired up, and a judge caught them, right? Now, he caught them because the person who was receiving the potential win was also like trying to what's the word? The guy who was paired up didn't just immediately call judge. He actually went to go along with it. The guy who was defeated wanted, this is what I heard, money to do so. Now, if you're in this situation and you get offered money, if someone says, hey, pay me and I'll scoop and let you win, you just call judge. Just call judge. You can get the win anyway. Like, you win, you get the win. You didn't go with collusion. You snitched, sure, but like, come on, like that's one of the things where it's literally in the rules where you both get DQ'd and ejected from the tournament, right? And you just wasted the day to do nothing, right? And that's what happened. That's what happened to those two. They apparently got ejected from the tournament. Both of them they would have made day 2. They didn't make day 2 after that. So that was a very final round of Swiss for that day. So the other fun story that I have, this one is, so this is a day 2 one. So I mentioned that there were a lot of people scalping, right? So, and they had multiple copies of stuff. So apparently what had happened was that there were people that were standing outside the merch line asking all the people in the merch line to buy them the things. They'll give them back the money. That's kind of how you can amass more things that you aren't really supposed to get, right? Or you can offer to pay them 2x, 3x the price that they paid for in order to get the thing that you want, right? So, I'd say, if you offer them the retail price and just say, hey bro, can you help me get this? I really want it. And then you do that like 10 times in a row. Yeah, okay. Then you resell it for like, 4 times. And yeah, the definition should be that you would be a scalper at that point. But if you said, hey bro, I'll buy it off you for $40, right? And it costs 15, you just do it for yourself, do it once. I think it's okay because you're desperate at this point. We're like in the afternoon of the last day of the event, everyone got dicked over. It was a complete shit show. Again, if you follow the rules, you got fucked. You wouldn't have gotten anything. So, to go in line, you had to ask for people to just say, yeah, I'm not buying that One Piece thing. Yeah, I'll buy it for you. Just give me the 40, give me whatever you're offering for it. And it's like, that's a fair deal, right? That person isn't trying to scalp the thing, and you're not trying to scalp because they offered to ask, like, hey, can you do me a favor? I think that is one way to get around the system. But it's also one of those things where, you just see like the same guy goes up to like everyone, like offers a ton of like lowball offers, and people would do it. And my advice is just don't do it unless you are cool with the person, or if they're willing to help you get a product in exchange. For example, if you're there, you don't care about One Piece, guy says, hey, do you play Digimon? Yeah, I play Digimon. Okay, I'll get you the Digimon thing if you get me the One Piece thing. 1-for-1 trade. Absolutely fine. I think that's a pretty positive interaction where both people can just like shake on it and push it through. So all right, so another story that I got is essentially about my experience going there. This is just a personal one. This one really doesn't have anything to do with Bandai. I just want to talk about it because it's kind of salty, because I should have just went home. So made the post on Friday Friday afternoon rather, that hey, I'm at the airport, my flight got delayed, let's see if I get to go to Bandai. And so I'm telling my friends, like, all right, if this thing gets delayed past 9 o'clock, I'm just gonna go home, get the full refund on the flight, cancel the hotel so I don't get charged for anything, and then probably just ask a buddy who's playing One Piece or something to pick up my bag and just call it from there, right? Because the only thing at that point that I had paid for was the flight and the regional for Gundam, right? And the regional for Gundam, I could have just asked my buddy who would have still wasn't in Gundam, to just go and get my stuff, right? So, and also fly Delta, because when this stuff happens, Delta actually compensates you, and that's, either they give you the refund, or there's going to be the other thing that's going to happen in this story. So, the flight gets delayed up until 8:50, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go to Texas, right? Yeah, so I was like, all right, well, was it 9 o'clock? I said 9 o'clock. Wasn't 9 o'clock. I guess we'll go. After that, get on the flight, land in Dallas at like 11:30, and then go to the hotel by midnight. already hear the people, or really heard about the rumors of people lining up at midnight and saying, okay, I'm not doing that. I need to go to sleep, man. I can't. I'm not going to line up at midnight for the chance of nothing happening. All right, good call on Andrew, because that's, I woke up at 7, rolled into the line, stood in the cemetery, got my badge, played in the tournament, all good and dandy, right? All right, now we fast forward all the way to the very end on Sunday, and Sunday, oh boy, this trip really was cursed because we were at the airport, and there's a thunderstorm rolling into Dallas, and first delay happens. Okay, it's delayed till, our flight's at 7:30. Okay, delayed to 8. It's not too bad. It's only a half-hour delay. 8:50, 9:30, 10, 11. And I'm like, this sucks, because then essentially we're taking like a red-eye flight back to New York, right? And what happened was that the flight ended up getting completely canceled. Delta rebooked us on the next flight at 9:40, and one of the things that was a nice perk about this airline is that they put us up in a hotel room for free, and we just had to get there. It's like Best Western, I think, that we chose just because it's, I think, the nicest hotel that was on the list. Better than the Super 8. So we got to get a free night in Dallas comped because of the delay. We didn't have to sleep in the airport. So in the silver lining of this entire weekend, I can confidently say Delta's really good airline to fly domestically if this case happens to you, because I know for a fact that this was United, I would have gotten screwed. Or American, or Spirit, or Frontier. Not sure about Southwest, but the point still stands. That was like, I really should have just stayed home, because I would have avoided all this headache. Because the only reason I even got stuff at the event was because I did pay. Like, there's a Nikkei mat that I wanted. I paid the guy $100 for the Nikkei mat and the Pro. It was retailed for $45. I was like, you know what? It's 3 o'clock. I'm just gonna cut my loss, and I'll be like, thanks, bro. Thanks for helping me out. I'll just, he agreed on a price. I just picked it up. I didn't want to like have to, pull my hair about trying to get it for MSRP. And kind of sucks because it's more expensive than what I wanted to pay for. But at the end of the day, it's one of the things that I did want at the event, aside from the Gundam stuff. And I come back and I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, instead of paying for the flight, paying for my half of the hotel, I could, or paying for the hotel in general, I could have just told my buddy, hey, here's here's $450 or whatever. Just get me these things. Doesn't matter the price, right? Because if you think about it in a way that I had to spend the money to go there, experience it, I still lost the money going there, right? And to come back and be like, well, should not have gone. I should have just asked them to pick it up, even if it was like for scalper price. I still would have, at least I would have had the stuff, and not spent an entire weekend away, and trying to do like all the weird sketchy stuff just to try to get ahead, because again, you follow the rules, you get fucked. So it's one of those things where that's gonna be my experience. Now, I do have a constructive criticism for the event. I mentioned before, have the staff actually go outside the goddamn convention hall to rein in the chaos, to put out the signs, to tell people where to go, to actually help the people who are lining, well, not the people who line up at midnight, because you shouldn't have to have staff there at midnight, but when 6 o'clock rolls around and the staff is in the building, like, at a certain point, just get them to corral the people into proper lines, or have a way that makes it where each door, there's multiple doors to get into the convention hall. Each of the doors corresponded to different games, which means that it was easier to get in for anyone who registered for those games, right? And maybe have a separate line for people like me who didn't register or get their badges on Friday. This way you have people who have their badges from prior, people who didn't have their badges, so they can go straight to whatever booth they can and not have to wait in line for the people who have the badges to go ahead in front of them, right? This way, guys like me, we can get our stuff and then go join the big line. That it would have made it a little bit easier on what to do. Maybe have like this is another one, just like updates on PlayStation on where to go. Like they freaking posted all throughout the weekend. Why not have the post, maybe not on PlayStation, but like maybe on the Facebook group of like, hey, this is the the UA sign-in booth. Excited to see people sign up for the waitlist. If you didn't get into the regional, here's your chance. Well, stuff like that. Where to actually go, and so people can be reassured and not like scramble around for anything. Now, this one's for the merch store. This one I've been thinking about a lot. I think utilizing Play TCG would have been a really good choice. If it really is randomized based on the lottery, I think knowing that we can run under the assumption that anyone who went to this event would have liked to go to the merch booth, right? I don't think there's anyone who got to the event and said, I don't want to go to the merch booth at all, right? I think that if we had utilized Play TCG to allow people to either get a link to their time slot. Let's say I'm just saying I'm playing the rounds and I'm a competitor, and they have the list of all the people who are in the tournament and checked into the tournament, mind you. And I got the notification, hey, it's you have a time slot. You were selected for a time slot for the Bandai store at 11 o'clock, right? Click this link to confirm, and then I guess I don't know, enter your. Or it could just be tied to your Play TCG or your TCG Plus if you accept, and they can just scan the QR code of your last minute registration, which corresponds to your ID. Or it could be like a separate event for that time slot, and you just give them the QR code for that event, right? So you're like checking in to an actual event. That is one thing I thought about, like utilizing the technology that they are using throughout the day with something that got so cumbersome and that have relied on one QR code with a really shitty bandwidth issue, right? In this way, it's really hard to fraud it because, again, you're tied to your phone, you're tied to your account. Yeah, you could probably give your account to a buddy, but then that's you giving you, the person, giving away your slot to someone that can go in and buy stuff, right? And also potentially that's also giving them your Bandai ID. That's like, we get to the gray areas of like what could be and could be bad, but I think overall like that would have been a little bit better system than having the QR code, which eventually got stolen or got mobbed by the 500 people that were stuck in line like trying to get in. Now the other thing about the merch, it sold out super fast, sold out instantly fast, where I was like, this is stupid. Why is it stupid, Andrew? Because whenever you pre-order like Digimon stuff on P Bandai, it's like, forget the Gundam thing. Forget the Gundam Wing Gundam garbage fest that was sold out within a minute. Let's look at the stuff that like the Digimon stuff, right? Maybe some of the One Piece stuff. I know for Digimon for a fact because I ordered that. The Digimon stuff on P Bandai, you can buy up to 12. You can buy multiple instances of 12, and then they'll ship you everything at a certain date, right? So my question is, why wouldn't it have been within the realm of possibility to have people prepay for the stuff that they want to pre-order at the event, and just use the tablets that were already at the checkout line for the person to enter in their address, their information, their Bandai ID number, right? Because again, you don't have to have, maybe they don't have to have a premium Bandai account, but they have the Bandai Plus account, and I know for a fact that the organizers do ship out some of the product to people at their home when they play on an online regional. So it's not like you're giving away your information. Your information is already there. It's already been given out, and to prepay for it, if it's using a service like the backend for Shopify POS or Square, that has a record of all the transactions that were done. It sends a confirmation email of all the transactions that you do when you get a receipt. It's information that's stored. To ask someone to type in their address, yeah, the line might have taken longer, right? It doesn't matter, because then in the time it took for a Bandai employee to go in the back to search for all the stuff that the people are asking on the thing, I would assume it takes, even on a tablet, like 1 to 2 minutes to type in your home address, type in your phone number and your email address to receive the confirmation, and then pay for the product on site. This way, it gives it where it's an on-site exclusive that you get shipped to your home. I would have paid an extra like $10 for the shipping cost for that. Like, I think that would have been an adequate solution, right? But then you can scalp the stuff, right? It's the whole thing that it doesn't help. You know, it didn't help. The current system, it needs to be improved, or it needs to be account for all these variables that people are talking about, because there is truth in what people are saying, and that's what like really drives me to say that, like, yeah, no, everyone, what they're all saying is correct. Well, what they're experiencing was correct, how they're feeling is correct. What might come after this, we don't know, because personally, I don't think, as long as I really don't know who to like place blame on, but I want to say that I got the receipt from Play TCG, so I'm gonna say, go on a limb, Play TCG, if they're gonna be organizing this again, have a really big grain of salt, because there might be mismanagement like this unless there's a big change, right? Unless someone publicly says this change is happening, I have no reason to even go to any one of these events, right? I'll just go to the Canada Regional, enjoy my time, and skip every single thing that says Bandai Fest on it, because man, there really was no point in going. Like, I think anyone who stayed at home watching the drama unfold, you guys made the right call, because man, like, yeah, I got the EX base. Ooh, you know, it's fine. I got some for my friends. You know, it's fine. But now to go through all this, like to go through all the different hoops and hurdles and MGS type missions to get into the building and get onto a line, it really doesn't feel right about an event where, you know, you have to do this stuff in order to get ahead, because like, if you don't and you play by the rules, then you get fucked. You know, I'm gonna hammer that in. That's how I'm gonna describe the event, because yeah, at a certain point I said, fuck it, I'm not gonna play by the rules. Like, this is stupid. No one else played by the rules in this event, so why should I? Terrible mentality, I know. But you know, for the reflection on all this weekend, I've said my piece. You know, I made my decision. I'm probably not going to go to any one of these events if Play TCG's run by it, unless Bandai comes forward officially and doesn't just give the generic, we're looking into the matters, we take this very seriously, thank you for your feedback type response, because that's pretty much AI generated or just a template. Unless someone actively decides to, on an official channel, to go out and acknowledge the issues that happened and explain the situation, and you know, explain the mishandlings, then again, there's no reason for me to go in any of these events. I'm just going to the regionals, do that, have fun with guys, maybe scrub out again, who knows. But you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, I think I'm okay. You know, I think there's a level of FOMO that comes out for these events, but I think the real FOMO is not being in any of these stories or not having to witness these stories. Man, I wish I was one of those people now, because you don't have to deal with this stuff. You're just sitting back eating popcorn, listening to the tea, you know. And I think that's what really is the really sad part about it. Like, people were there, people wanted to be excited, I wanted to be excited, but at the end of the day, it just became like, how much more shit can we take, you know? But yeah, that's it for me. I've rambled on a lot about the event, personal experience, offered some, you know, some advice, maybe, who knows. I don't really think anyone's gonna watch that far, but you know, with that being said, if you were at the event and you saw my sardine bag, that was me, that's your boy. And if you see me in Canada, I'll have the same sardine bag, because, oh wait, that was actually the good thing about the event. I learned that the sardine bag that I was using actually fits my dice and my deck box like really well, and I can put my phone in there during matches, so it doesn't bother me in my pocket. So I think it was cool. That was a good pickup, so I'm gonna keep using that for events. So I'm gonna keep having that. I'll keep showing it off, and I'll have my new shiny mat as well to play. So if you're at Canada Regionals, this is me, Andrew, Replay Works. I will see you there. And if we don't, well, you know, we got a new season coming up with the new IBO starter deck, so I'm excited to see how that's going to be turning out for the replay review. I am taking a small break just because regionals is over. We'll talk about that later as a final recap, but I think we're okay on the replay reviews for covering it until we see the new cards and how that, like, even just a little bit of purple shakes up our meta. So with that being said, we'll see you in the next one, and honestly, thanks for watching.